to Your Queer Story. We are your hosts. I am Evan Jones.
And I'm Paul Hobbs, and we're the podcast that inspires peace, love, and radicalism. And you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe. I'm the guest today, and I am from Wet Lubricants.
That's right. We're going to get real wet and slippery today, guys. We're going to talk all about lube and sexual health and whatever the fuck else we want to talk about.
Perfect. You know, if you've been listening, you know we kind of actually don't talk about the topic, but
we do talk about the topic.
We'll try to stay on track.
Mostly.
At some point, you'll hear the information you came to listen to.
We'll get on track. We'll see how long this episode takes. 3 hours later. They're like, wow. All right.
A full 24-hour podcast to make the one point that we want to.
Yes. We just keep going and going. It's fine. They're going to hang in there. Anyway, so before we get started, we're going to jump in because we are a history podcast. Actually, you know what? We can't do that. You have an announcement to make.
I got engaged on the first.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Woo!
Finally. I've only been waiting 5 years.
It's been forever. I told him every January 1st, David's told me I'm going to propose, and David has not done it. So this year I was like, of course it's not going to happen.
So we were actually at our hairstylist's, and I made a comment, and I think that kind of maybe because our hairstylist was talking about how she got engaged, and I was like, oh, my boyfriend would rather buy wigs than a ring.
Ooh.
And then and he was there, of course, and he just kind of was like, oh shit. And then I got a ring, so if that's how you gotta do sometimes.
It's like, bitch,
whatever works.
Whatever works.
That's right. It's a beautiful ring from Tiffany's.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Ooh. Nice little Tiffany ring.
That's right.
Gorgeous.
It was cute.
So we're going to make an honest woman out of you, and I'm really excited about that.
I am just excited to go part-time and start a book club.
That's all
you mean a wine drinking club or a beer drinking club?
I'm not going to read the books. Everybody else can read them. I'm just going to drink wine while they talk about the books.
Paul
exactly.
He has no intention of doing that. He just wants to wear his pearls, hire a house cleaner, and sit around with a book and pretend that he's a refined woman, but he's not.
I absolutely, my hat tips to you because that's my dream also. I want to be a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. That is my goal. That is my goal.
We wanted to one day we're going to be able to do like the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and it's just going to be a bunch of drag queens. We're going to get on it. But
perfect, and then I'll move out to Rhode Island, and I'll be a part of that. I'll be a part of the Real Housewives franchise any way I can.
Yes. Okay, so we've got Paul, we've got Joe. I'm just going to be the director. So it's going to be real boring. Apply now to Providence, Rhode Island Housewives.
.com.org.ca.
Starring us.
Starring us, yes. Okay, and then one other thing that is just business for our Patreons. Thank you so much for your support. And we have the Coffee with Evan, which is our weekly. It's a weekly mini-sode videos exclusively for our patrons. So if you're not a Patreon, you don't get to watch me talk about all the shit I talk about. So get on there, subscribe, help us, and you guys know that your money goes to the podcast and also to the Queer Mentorship Program, which helps young people that are in need trying to get out of conservative environments. So Patreons, check us out at Your Queer Story at Patreon. What is it?
Patreon.com/YourQueerStory.
That one. I figured out how to upload the video, so that's something.
I'm actually extremely proud of you.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, so I'm trying to decide what I want to do first because I want to talk about the brief history of lube, because we need to talk about lube. But, Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself for our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. Again, like I said, my name is Joe. I work for Wet Lubricants. I'm 32 years old. I live in Los Angeles. How did I get into the lube industry? Let's go ahead and talk about that.
We want to know.
How did my career path take me to lube?
Did you think when you were younger, one day I'm going to sell lube?
I was like the most perverted little kid in the entire world. So I mean, it really does make sense.
Your mother's like, you know what? That makes sense.
At least I'm not alone.
You know what? Seriously, it's true. It didn't matter if again, growing up, before I knew I was gay and I even understood what gay was, all I wanted to do was look at naked people. And when I was a really young kid, I found my parents, it was actually, speaking of lube, and my owner's going to be so mad at me, but it was not our brand that I found in my parents' drawer, and that was my first like vision of lube. And at that time I was probably like 10 years old. If you remember the show on Oxygen, Talk Sex with Sue Johansson, because of that old lady, she was like 90 years old and she talked about dildos,
and she talked about sex.
Oh, like hardcore, you have no idea. Like, I mean, very graphically, and she would have the stuff and she would be demonstrating it. She was like 90 fucking years old. It was insane.
We need to cover her.
Good.
So I learned what a cock ring was. I learned what flavored lube was. I learned vibrators at like 8, 9 years old. So by watching this lady like late at night.
And did your parents know that you're watching this? They don't
No,
care.
they were upstairs. I mean,
just sneaking
they were
out.
lushes. They would be asleep by like 8 o'clock.
So you were that kid that was like watching TV until 2, or you would like wake up in the middle of the night and that random channel would be on. Yep,
Yes,
I know exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
exactly it. And I mean, of course, then that progressed to you learned, oh, wait, they have that little box that has the porn channels too, but you would go to it and it would be all fuzzy. Sometimes you would see a nipple, sometimes you would see a dick, but it was all fuzzy, so you really couldn't. But yes, I found my parents' hot stuff lube, that's what it was called, and it was cherry flavor, and I knew exactly what that was, next to a cock ring, a vibrator.
You knew as soon as you opened the drawer.
As soon as I opened the drawer. I was going to
what's
see.
her name?
This is actually how it happened. I was going to see the movie Titanic, so that's how long ago this was.
Oh, wow.
I was going to see the movie Titanic, so maybe I was like 11 years old, 12 years old, whatever it was. And I went in that wrong drawer and I found out I was trying to get money to go to the movie theater. I needed $5 to go see the movie. Well, I went into the wrong drawer, and to my surprise, there it all was. And
you know what?
Okay.
Yeah, but I used to watch like Real Sex, Talk Sex with Sue, really, really young, and then also like liking to see naked people. Like I'd always spy on people, like try to go into the bathroom when my babysitters were there, like just weird shit. I was a weird little kid. I was a weird little pervert.
You were curious. That's okay.
See,
Curiosity.
I
is
was
fine.
the kid who like every week I was like, I need new underwear, Mom. So she would take me to like Walmart or whatever, and I could look at all of the men on the underwear.
Well, that's where it all started.
That was the start of it all.
That was the start of it all. The underwear packages at Kmart. Mm-hmm.
I was far too repressed and sheltered, so I had none of that. But I'm glad that you guys did.
Oh, we did.
So you grow up from being a little pervert to
Then I started, school, and then I worked at Abercrombie and Fitch, and then I got into reality TV, which was really weird. I was on reality TV.
Okay.
I was on a dating show, actually dating a girl.
Oh,
so,
wow. Well,
yes.
How did that work
come
out for you?
or were you just doing it for reality TV?
You know what? I was totally out at that time. They just thought it was funny. I mean, again, when it comes to reality TV, I will be serious. What you see on TV is actually a lot more real than what you think. There really is no scripting, but they do find their characters, and they totally knew that I was gay, and they were going to have a free-for-all with it. It was 2009, so I mean, it wasn't so PC yet, where they could still have fun.
But it was still scandalous enough to like draw viewers.
It was the VH1 show, so like Rock of Love. It was a spin-off of that. It was called Megan Wants a Millionaire, and then
Megan.
yes, and
I'm
funny
gonna have
enough,
to go back and watch it
if
now.
you Google it, it actually ended in tragedy. My one of my cast members, actually ended up killing his wife and then killing himself. So they pulled it off the air. Yes, it was big and dramatic, and that's why I moved on from a Hollywood career to working in the adult industry. I started with Lover's Lane in Chicago.
Jesus Christ.
Whoa.
All right.
So I started with Lover's Lane in Chicago. I was managing a couple of their locations, and I mean, again, that was Chicago, so it was really cold. I didn't like it. I got to experience California, so I knew there was this whole new I experienced something totally different, and I don't need to deal with snow and winters anymore. So I moved out that way, and I wanted to kind of switch it up. And long story short, I went back to adult retail because you need a job in California. If you don't have one, you're going to be one of those homeless people in Skid Row. And I didn't want that. So went back to the adult industry doing kind of the adult store deal. And within 7 months, the president at that time of Wet Lubricants came in, and he was asking about the products. And I told him a little bit, but ultimately got him to spend like $375 on other stuff.
Wow. Nice.
He comes back the next day. He's like, I had no intention of buying anything. He's like, I really need you on my team. I work for Wet Lubricants. I'm like, oh, cool. So I went to the facility the next day. And can I just tell you, a lube facility, if you guys, next time you're in Las Vegas, because that's where we're stationed.
Okay.
It originally started out in Los Angeles. We're in an 80,000 square foot Vegas. If you guys are ever out in Las Vegas area, please hit me up so I could take you on a tour of the facility.
Would love to tour a lube's facility.
That would be so
absolutely
much
love
fun.
it.
Okay,
Can we go
Lube.
swimming?
Yes, we will fill up like a 10-gallon drum so you guys can jump in.
That's all I want to do.
It's literally one of those things, like, I didn't know what to expect going to a lube factory, right? Like, what is this? What is this going to be like? Well, they do everything in-house. Like, Wet Lubricants does everything in-house. So from creating the formulas to bottling the products, labeling the products, filling the products, shipping the products. So I go in there.
How does quality control work?
We're FDA approved. So our facility is FDA approved, and our products are 510K. So we have people in our facility making sure that we're up to par with everything. A lot. We actually have them coming in again very soon.
I was hoping you had like a room where you're like, all right, test this product, make sure it works right.
Oh, see, that could be a little controversial, but we do product testing, so people obviously
Well, you have to do it.
We have to do it. We do. We have to
So-
do it. So there is product testing that goes along with it just to make sure that everything is perfect. But I'm telling you, a lube facility, a lube factory is like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory with lube. And the owner, Michael Trigg, is super dope. He's one of the coolest people people that you'll ever meet. He is the Willy Wonka of our lube industry.
Oh my God.
So you guys have to come by.
This is the new musical that needs to be.
Yes.
It's like
We can't.
Joe in the lube factory, and then we just go into this whole thing.
I would be more the Veruca Salt. I want it now, and then they would probably like drop me through a hole, and I'd be eaten by some.
But at
taste
least,
the blueberry lube, and all of a sudden,
Turn into a big
at least
blueberry.
you would get through the tube real easily.
I would. This is true. Slip right through. Thank you, lube. Hopefully, it's the platinum tube.
All right. Okay. And so so you've been working with Wet Lubricants for 5 years?
Going on 5 years,
Okay,
yep.
awesome.
So it's been a long time. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, I'm the brand ambassador, so what I do is I kind of go around to all the adult stores, all of the adult shows, and I explain the product, I showcase the product, promote the new products, and I really just let people know, like, the importance of using Lube A, and then B, what separates our products, Wet, from the competition out there. I mean, again, lube is lube, and it all does pretty much the same thing, but what people don't understand is the quality of each lubricant varies, and I mean, there's different flavors, there's different types, so, I mean, nobody's better or worse than anybody else, it's just kind of how we do things a little bit different.
Yeah. No, I actually, we're going to get to some of that because I do think that you guys, it's been proven that you guys have some better quality. And so we're going to talk about that. I put that in my script. I did my research. Okay, so as we're talking about lube, let's talk about like where lube, the concept of lube came from. Like, why did people want to get nice and slick?
Well,
What's
it's
the word I'm
because
looking
the
for?
Greeks, they all had their boys.
It's literally right here in the fucking script. I typed this whole thing out for you. Okay.
You can go ahead and start.
All right, I
this.
will start. Thank you. So, a brief history of lube. So, people have been lubing up for a long time. In fact, the earliest recorded use was olive oil used by the Greeks in 350 BC. They used it to keep their sex wet. I put the word wet in here several times just
Thank
for
you.
Keeping that
I
brand.
appreciate that.
No juice.
That's right.
Shamelessly plugging. I love
Exactly. We know about branding. All right. But folks even believed that smooth sex could keep them from getting pregnant. That was something that I think Aristotle wrote. He's like, if you're smooth, then you won't get pregnant. I didn't know
I
about
think that makes a
Wait,
lot
and
of
he was
sense.
like a really famous theorist, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah. So I think he also was a little gay. Maybe I'm getting
think
my
everybody-
philosopher.
I think
everybody's a little gay.
Yeah,
At
every
least a
person
little
in
bit.
Greek, yes. All right. And even over in East Asia, the sexually adventurous had found that yam soup worked as a lubricant, as well as the water left over from boiled red seaweed.
Ooh.
So
Hey,
if
that
you're
could be a
ever
good
real
ingredient.
hard up,
Keep that in
Seaweed
mind.
flavored lube.
Or
you know
seaweed
what?
as an ingredient.
Honestly, you could pitch it as
Probably has health
like
benefits.
they're probably you could
You
pitch
could-
it that way.
that would
You
sell really
easily
well in
could.
California.
Totally would. Oh my god, yes it would.
Get a lube and call it yam soup. I want to know about that one. I don't know. All right. So throughout the centuries, people developed other means to stay lubricated, and as the 1900s roared into play, Vaseline and Crisco became staples in sexual exploration. Which actually,
It was cheap.
sex clubs, gay clubs used to put a can of Crisco on every
They
table.
would. They
Yeah.
would. And Vaseline that was probably one of the biggest things that people used as
Yeah.
lubricant back in like the 70s and 80s. Same
Yeah.
with Crisco. Those
Yeah.
were like the two
Yeah.
most common. I mean, Vaseline, I guess, would probably give you some sort of cooling sensation.
And
So
you
for
could
women,
buy
that
it-
Interesting.
You could buy it under the radar, right? Like, you
Yeah.
just
Well,
buy
that was the thing.
Vaseline.
Like that was a big thing. Obviously, you couldn't. So up until, as I'll talk about in a minute, you couldn't even buy lube over the counter. It had to be a prescription.
we were the first ones to do that, actually. Wet Lubricant was the first lube that you could go into a store and buy. We were the...
See, I didn't get that, and I did a lot of research, so that's good. That's good to know because I didn't put that in there. But yeah, so like you couldn't just buy it over the
Can
counter.
I
You
get
had
a prescription from lube for my doctor so my insurance covers it today?
I guess you could try it.
I mean, it
guess.
is expensive, right?
That's a good
That's
question.
right.
Thank God you know me now.
Yeah, we've got to hook up, so we're okay. All right. So even though public sex education and a plethora of porn videos were not yet available, everyone still knew that sex was better wet.
In 1904, the first patented lubricant came onto the scene, promoted as surgical aid. Just over 10 years later, in 1917, the product was being sold as a sexual lubricant, but only with a prescription. The stigma around sex and sexual pleasure kept lube as a sought-after, yet taboo subject for the next 60 years. It would take a brave and daring group of people to bring the topic into mainstream discussion, and the queers were just the folks with the backbone to do so. Though the conversation wasn't brought up in regards to sexual pleasure, but rather as a way to stem the wave of the AIDS epidemic.
Yes. So in early 1980s, had brought on an onslaught of death among LGBTQ communities and especially among gay men. This was due to poor education about sexual health and the inability of queer people to access proper medical care. As gay rights activists fought to be seen and heard by our government, others took it upon themselves to inform their peers about safe sex practices. Condoms and lubricant were a must and began to be passed out in every gay bar and organization across the country. Lube especially was important as it prevents tearing during sexual play, which, of course, Joey will get into more. And lubrication also greatly prevents condoms from breaking, which was and is a common issue even today, which I honestly didn't even... I knew that, obviously, lube was for sexual pleasure. Like, that was easy for me. But I didn't realize how much it's prevented condoms from breaking and prevents tearing to prevent the spread of STIs.
Well, that's exactly it, because, I mean, obviously, during intercourse, any type of intercourse, there's going to be micro tears. That's going to happen. And I mean, through those micro tears, I know that sounes horrible, right? Micro tears.
You're enduring 1,000 micro tears.
But at some point, do you get like scarred so you no longer tear?
No, you really will always tear. It's not going to. So using lubricant is going to reduce the friction. It's going to reduce the micro tear, so that's not going to happen. It creates that barrier between the skin and the toy or the other person. So it keeps that glide going. So reducing the friction is going to prevent the micro tears from happening. Also, the lubrication and reducing friction is going to help protect the condom too. It's going to keep it lubricated, so it's going to keep going and going and going. Obviously, make sure whatever lubricant you're using, like in our case, Wet Lubricants, is all of our products are totally latex compatible. Even our silicones, our platinum, that's the number one thing that I recommend. But it's the best because it's not going to tear the condom. It's going to reduce the friction and micros, and it's going to just make the whole experience feel so much better. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people are like, I don't need a lube. I'm not an old lady. I'm not dry. And it doesn't matter. The way that I tell people and the way I explain it is, okay, so it's wintertime out right now, and we're here in Rhode Island. So you get chapped lips, right? Well, if you get chapped lips, you take your tongue, you lick them, and then you rub your lips together. Makes it feel a little bit better, right? Yeah. But when you apply chapstick to your lips, and then you rub them together, feels so much better, right? And it lasts much longer. So that's kind of the way that I break it down with lubricant. I mean, some people are like, I don't need lube. I'll just use spit or my natural body juices. It's not going to happen, especially as a gay male and especially in the gay community. Your butt is not going to self-lubricate. And absolutely. If it is, please go to the hospital at once.
That's a great point. And I love that chapstick analogy because you're right. You know, it's like, sure, you can push through, but why? It's going to give you a better experience overall, and you're absolutely right. I don't think people realize how much it's preventing the risk of STDs, STIs.
Absolutely. It really helps out in so many different ways.
I guess I never thought about that. Like I never made that connection.
Like I didn't think about it much before.
A lot of people don't. I mean, and especially like in pop culture today, you know, you see like movies and they make fun of lube. Like what was it? Superbad, which is probably 10 years old at this time. So there I go, aging myself. But and he pulls out, he's like, oh, I got spermicidal lube. Who needs spermicidal lube? Who needs lube in general? You know, like they make jokes about it in movies. And I mean, I think a lot of people really do think that. But when you realize what the benefits are, the health benefits, and when it comes to sexual health and wellness, I mean, lube that should be your starter. That should be your key ingredient. That should be number one.
I absolutely agree. We're gonna talk about that a little more too, because I want to talk about the kind of the stigma too about this idea of you should be able to be wet enough, or I should be able to make you wet enough, and the stuff like that. We're gonna get into that too, because I think there's also this toxic masculine idea that I should be able to give you everything you need.
Exactly. I mean, because being an attractive man or attractive woman is going to just make somebody's body chemistry work different.
As Gingerman says, she thinks you're going to flood your basement.
Exactly. You should be able to flood your basement. All right, so go ahead.
By the mid-'80s, activists were responsible for getting lube from behind the pharmacy to over the counter.
Which, as we learned, that's Wet Lubricant.
Wet Lube.
Yep. Simply the fact that people could buy lube at their local drugstore began to ease the stigma around the product. And it was at the height of the AIDS outbreak in 1989 that Wet Lubricants was founded and began to revolutionize the industry. During the 90s, many lubes carried the ingredient nonoxynol 9. Something like that.
Nonoxynol. I listened to this. Nonoxynol 9. It's what you think it is. Nonoxynol 9.
Okay. Yeah. A spermicide believed to prevent HIV. However, the chemical was actually toxic for the body and corroded the vaginal and anal walls, making the individual more susceptible to STIs. After scientists reported this finding in 1996, Wet Lubricants became one of the first companies to remove the ingredient. Today, the FDA takes a harsh stance against the ingredient, and sex shops won't sell lubricants which contain nonoxynol 9.
Wow, that's actually really interesting, and you just taught me something, and that's why I never actually asked the question, but I have heard that we would never do a spermicidal lube, we would never do that, I guess, because obviously way before me, they did something like that, and that's obviously not good. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so it was corroding the walls, like people are like, we're preventing HIV, but anything that it didn't catch was going through the tears.
Wow.
And so, and you can still, so that's why you need to be careful what you're buying online, folks, because if you're buying something with non-oxonal 9, you're actually corroding the walls inside you, and you're making yourself more susceptible, you know.
Absolutely, and that's why I always say, whenever you're looking for any sort of product, whether it's a lubricant or a toy, always go to your adult store. The adult stores are the best places to go because those people are very well educated. Again, coming from one, you have like months of training, months and months of training on each product. So you know the ins and outs. You know what they're going to do that's good. You know what they're going to do that's bad. You know the ingredients. You know what they're made of. And the main point of going into adult stores is so you could talk to somebody about it who is educated in that. Because, I mean, the three of us, let's say that we didn't know anything about it and we just go to a store and somebody says, oh, go buy a lube. How do you know what you're buying? You don't know what you're looking for. If that's not something you've ever thought of, definitely ask the questions. And I know it's taboo, but just ask.
No, it's true because you're not utilizing your resources. I think that's absolutely true. People go into sex shops, and you always see different people when you're in there. Like, there's a person that's talking to the girl at the counter, and then there's a person that's trying to, like, grab something and get out.
Yep.
You know, this is the best place to be informed. This is a very safe space. These people work in the sex industry.
Yes.
They know how to help you. Like, we talk about our friend Katie all the time. She works in a sex shop. She's happy to work in a sex shop. She knows what she's talking about. Utilize that resource.
Exactly. That's what I say. And that's why they're there. That's why they're there. You could go online and you could buy a product, but you don't know what you're getting online. You have no idea.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So as we entered the new millennium, the conversation around sex and lube began to change. It was no longer viewed as simply a product that could reduce pain and risk of STIs. It was also seen as something that increased pleasure. Today, lube is a multi-million-dollar industry, and one of the companies leading the way is Wet Lubricants. But even with all the advancements our society has made towards sex positivity, there are still a lot of stigmas. So that's why we invited Joe from Wet to come and talk on the show about lube, why it's so important, and how we can continue to promote sex positivity.
Yes.
All right. So as you talked about Michael Trigg is the founder of Wet Lubricants with Christian Franco. That was something I found.
Yes, Chris Franco. He is I know Chris, and he works more in the back, so I don't really work with him one-on-one, you know, as much as I do with Michael. Chris kind of just makes sure that everything behind the scenes is getting done. Okay. So Michael is the owner, he's a founder, he deals with every single aspect of the business, and he does a great job. Chris, he makes sure that the stuff that's supposed to be getting done and is supposed to be getting shipped out and things are being done on time, that would be Chris. Yeah. And then there's Simone. She's our president. She's absolutely amazing. She's a sweetheart. Right. She does a great job. And then we have our sales team. And then there's me. I'm the brand ambassador. I mean, we have so many different departments. We have our chemists. There's so much. You guys just have to come and check it out.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely want to check it out. Please. Love to go take a video of the tour.
You're more than welcome to take videos and do whatever you want. Like I said, I mean, if you want a real life Willy Wonka experience with lube, please. That's the way that I can explain it that makes the most sense.
I feel like I saw a picture of Michael, and I feel like I definitely get that Willy Wonka vibe.
Oh my God, with like the little purple suit and the bow tie and the hat. Hey! He's all about the positive vibes and the happiness. All he needs to do is sing a song, and there we go. We have the Willy Wonka of our lube industry. He's amazing.
Good. Oh, yeah, we definitely want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys talked about, so you relocated from California to Las Vegas. You have a bigger facility now.
Yeah, we have a way bigger facility. So we started out in like, really, if you want to get technical with it, Michael started in like a garage back in the 1980s in his garage in Van Nuys. And obviously, you know, things changed and it grew, it blew up being that he was the first. So then eventually it ended up in a 60,000 square foot facility in Valencia, California, which is Santa Clarita. And that was also an FDA-approved facility. That was really when they moved to that facility is when the FDA thing started to happen and quality control. Yeah. And I mean, we really just busted out with like top-of-the-line ingredients, and it's just been great. So, I mean, we outgrew it, and it was time to move on to something a little bit bigger and take on Vegas. So we took on Vegas, 80,000 square foot facility. And we're rocking and rolling and really just growing. And I mean, that's the main point of it is we really want to take the sexual health and wellness aspect of things and really bring it to light to the people and let people understand, like, don't be shy about using lube and ask the questions and the benefits behind it, because there are so many benefits behind lube, whether you're looking to get into anal sex or even doing massage. I mean, with like silicone lubes, you could also do massage. And
you got this heating one.
We have warming, and then we have cooling and tingling. And the warming is really great. Obviously, men tend to like the warming sensations. Women tend to like the cooling and tingling sensations. So with the cooling and tingling, I find it really interesting. We use a little bit of peppermint extract, and literally like 0.5% peppermint extract is what we use in the cooling tingling lube and in our stimulation, our clitoral stim. And it is the coolest thing. I mean, you really do get this buzzing, tingling, cooling sensation. For women, it'll help achieve multiple intensified orgasms. For men, you get a little bit of a sensation and it feels really good, but it actually helps move things along a little bit quicker. So, yeah. I mean, some of us don't like to be on our knees for 45 minutes to an hour, So we wanted something to speed up the process.
I mean, some people do. I'm just going to advocate for the others. I know.
Some people do like to be on their knees for about an hour, but in that case, get me knee pads.
You just buy Amazon has really great cheap knee. No, I'm kidding.
I was so in tune to that. I was like, okay, wait, what? I'm listening.
Coupon
code.
Which brand?
They do. Just go into the gardening section. You've got knee pads. You've got the little mat, and you don't.
Promo code queer. Promo code queer. Hey Queerstants, Paul here with an incredible offer just for you. Wet Lube is offering you 15% off of your purchase at amazon.com/wet. All you have to do is enter the promo code 15QueerWet on the checkout page. Again, that's 15QueerWet on amazon.com/wet.
I also read an interesting facts from Forbes magazine, which has a great article on you guys. It was from about a little over a year ago.
Yes, I was at the A&M show. I know that picture. It's actually
Yes.
Michael Trigg talking to my friend Dina, who owns XXX Toy Spot, and then there's me making some ridiculous face, and then my Susie, who's in the background, standing there like, what the hell's going on?
I have to look at the picture again to see you, because now I know what you look like. Yes, and I linked that down in the bottom. We'll put the links up if you want to check it out. But Forbes said that you guys produce over 200,000 gallons of lube every year, which could fill 1.5 million Starbucks venti cups. So nice hot cup of lube. That's how I like to get my day started.
Comparing the lube to the Starbucks was really brilliant because
you get it, right?
Prime market right there.
It really is. And I mean, it's cool too is like if you do have coffee, like we have our flavored lubes. We have our salted caramel. We have our whipped cream, chocolate chip cookie. We have so many different flavors, so many amazing flavors. And you can actually mix them in with your coffee. That was kind of the main point of creating those particular flavors was we don't want to release them until they're good enough to mix in coffee or put on food, which you guys will be taste testing later on today.
Yes, we will be.
So look forward to that video.
Yes, there will be a video posted on our YouTube and on our social media, open to anyone, so you guys can check it out. And we'll probably also do a little exclusive clip just for our Patreons as well.
Maybe. Well, we'll see. I mean, $3 tier plus.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited. So it's like, is it cream or is it lube? You don't know. Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
And it mixes so well. Actually, at a couple of the events, that's what we did. We used some of the flavored lubes. Forgot which one it was. The hazelnut souffle. That's what we did. Hazelnut souffle. We used that as the mixer for the coffee. And people could not believe that it was lube. They were just so impressed. They were like, oh no, that's so good. Wow. But also the ingredients that we use inside of our flavored lubes, we never use sugars. That's one of the biggest things because obviously with a lubricant, you would never want to put sugar inside of your body. Yeah. So we use sucralose, which is basically Splenda. Number one, safest for the body and to be honest, top of the line and most expensive sugar replacement. Yeah. So men and women alike can both use this flavored lube, which is really rare. Typically when it comes to flavored lubes, men are the ones that usually put it on themselves and get the satisfaction, and then their partner is the one that goes down. But if it's a female, because they tend to use sugars or aspartame, that's not great to put inside of the body. Yeah. Ours being sugar-free, and we do not use aspartame, we use sucralose. It's great for both men and women to use. So, I mean, that's one thing that really does separate our brand from a lot of the other brands.
I think that's why I liked it so much. So the first time I ever sucked a dick. Well, no, it wasn't the first time. It was like the third or fourth time. The first time I ever enjoyed sucking a dick. As I got...
the first good experience.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys still do it, but it was a watermelon wet lube. I still remember it. Yeah, and I like lathered that on there. And I got through it. So, it works. This is my testimony. I always tell people use flavored lube. Use the flavored lube. It makes it fun for everybody.
Yeah, it does. It does. tastes good, and
You don't care. I care about the taste. You don't give a fuck.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna front. I'm not gonna front. I typically don't give a fuck about the taste either, but it is kind of fun to use in the moment sometimes.
I think it spices it up if you're gonna be down there for a while. It spices up for the person that's sucking the dick.
Exactly.
You know? So
and it actually helps you when you're sucking the dick.
Exactly.
It helps the
moisture.
There we go. What's the word that I'm looking for? Salivating. It helps you salivate, so that's gonna feel better for your partner.
Exactly. So everybody. So again, another great reason to use lube. All right.
And no bad aftertaste with our products either.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, so now we are getting into some of our questions, and then at this point, if you've got anything to say, Joe, just
blurt it out.
This is
you
your
want to talk
segment.
about.
Yay!
There are parts where I'm like, hey, elaborate on this, or do you want to talk about anything? But so we already talked a little bit about STDs and STIs. I'm sure we'll come back to some of that. We talked about the benefits of lube, but a couple things that I saw is 30% of women report pain during vaginal intercourse. And 70% of women reported that lube made sex more enjoyable, which, that all those seem to go together.
And look, 70% plus 30% equals 100%. So that means that those 30% of women that are experiencing vaginal pain are probably not using a lubricant.
Exactly. They're like, did you ever put this together? This is the problem.
2 plus
Simple
2
math.
equals 5.
That's what's wrong with the American education system today.
Simple math. There you go.
Thank God I grew up in the 80s and 90s.
So, all right. So, so we know that lube makes sex more enjoyable. And we know that there's no reason not to use lube. So what
other than stigma?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting to. You're constantly not letting me finish.
We finish each other's sentences.
Do.
It's fine.
All right. So what about this harmful stigma? What do we think this is? That where people just won't use lube just out of the sheer thing of I need to make you wet enough.
Okay, well, what I used to get when I was working in the retail environment, because in retail environment, somebody's coming in to spice up a night, you're going to recommend a lube, or if they're buying a toy, you need a lube with that.
Yeah.
Well, the number one objection that I would get personally, and a lot of people get in here, is I'm not an old lady. I'm not dry. I'm not going through menopause. Yeah. I self-lubricate. And that's wonderful. That's great. And that goes back to licking your lips versus using a chapstick. The chapstick is going to feel way better. It doesn't matter if you're 18 years old and you are self-lubricating perfectly and you're like a fountain down there. Mm-hmm. The whole point of lube is that it's a thicker viscosity. The viscosity is thicker and it's going to stay where you put it, and it's going to keep going and going and going, reducing that friction. That's great. You self-lubricate, that's going to dry out real quick. That's literally like using this. That's like faucet water. That's going to dry out real fast. Well, with a lubricant, especially a silicone that stays on top of the skin, it's going to keep going until you wash it off, so you're not going to need to reapply. You could continue to self-lubricate with that, but lubricant in general is just, it's a necessity, really.
Yeah, mm-hmm. No, and that was a good point of that, how it lasts a lot longer, and so that helps you out. And then, if it's a woman, I don't really understand, saying that she doesn't want to use lube. I don't get that because, like I said, like you said, it's going to last longer. You're going to dry out.
It's a stigma behind them thinking that it's a problem with themselves. A lot of the time people think that if they're using a lubricant, it's like a medical condition or it's a medical issue. And the other half of it, too, is people that are just too embarrassed to go buy a lubricant or talk about it, go into an adult store and say, hey, I'm experiencing a little bit of pain. Do you have anything that could help me out? A lot of the times, people that aren't like us, that are very open and we could talk about anything. I don't care if I farted. I'd be like, oh, sorry, I just farted. But a lot of people are not like that. So if they need to use a lubricant, and if they're, let me backtrack. If they're experiencing pain, to them, that's such a personal problem. They're probably not even going to want to tell their friend, oh yeah, I'm experiencing pain. No, they'll probably be like, it was great. I had such great sex and it was wonderful. It's something that's still taboo and people don't want to talk about, and they're scared of the judgment and the persona. And that kind of goes to a whole different topic, is people's self-image. I think people really need to let go. People really need to let go and just be yourselves, be completely open, ask the questions, because if you don't ask the questions, you're not going to get any answers. And if you're not getting any answers when it comes to pain during sex, and all the answer is use some lube, well, then you're going to have some really painful sex for the rest of your life just because you were too much of a pussy to go into an adult store or even ask a friend and say, hey, I'm experiencing pain down there. Yeah. What can I do? Simple answer. A $10 bottle of lube will solve all of your pain and all of your problems.
Yeah, that's right. I think... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's very interesting how people are afraid to talk about things, I guess. I don't really understand
For
it.
me,
I mean, I will say when I was 18 or 19, even to 20, I was like, oh, you have to buy the lube. I don't want to go in and buy it because I'm embarrassed. So I totally understand it, but at some point you just have to get over it.
You do.
And you know, you need it, right? Go buy it.
That's exactly it. I mean, go buy it. And how do the one thing that I always tell people when they get like nervous about talking about sex, or if like the topic of lube or even toys comes up, and somebody like starts to shut down. I mean, really, ultimately, where did you come from? Where did you come from? How did you get to this earth? Your parents had sex. Your dad stuck his penis into your mother's vagina and ejaculated, and 9 months later, here you are. That's how you got here. What is so embarrassing? Why are we embarrassed to talk about it? We all came here this way. For those of us that have kids, how did our kids get here? It's all through sex. You might as well enjoy it. Everybody does it. Don't be scared to ask questions. Use some lubricant. Use some toys. Incorporate massage into it. I mean, have fun. Enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's
it's
life.
a lot about exploration. I think that opens it up. Coming from such a conservative background, like a lot of what we were taught was that you know, you're not supposed to have sex until marriage. And then when you do have sex, like that was it. It was like there was just an on and off switch. Like you're not supposed to have sex, and then it's going to be amazing and it's going to be wonderful. And so when you have sex for the first time and it's not amazing and wonderful, you think there must, again, back to that, there must be something wrong with me. Rather than the fact that it's going to take time to explore.
Sure.
And that lube is a great way to explore. It's a way to explore in so many different ways.
Exactly.
You know, so I think a lot of that, and of course, and then if there was a person who, a man or the person who, the giver who just thinks that they shouldn't use lube, that would just be almost abusive, honestly. You're refusing to do that because you think you should be supplying something.
It is, and you have a lot of guys actually that are out there, and I notice this much more with my straight friends than with my gay friends, obviously. But with my straight friends, a lot of the time they're just like, "Fuck that! I don't need to go buy a bottle of lube. I'll just spit on my dick and shove it in." It's like, like where the hell did you learn that? They're like Jenna Jameson in 1995. I'm like, okay. And what happened to her? Where's she at now?
That's because they've never had anything inside of them.
That's true. I think that's a great point.
I think
if you've never
point.
had something inside you, you don't know what it feels like.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So the moral of the story is everybody needs a dick up their ass.
Yes,
At least
and
one.
please use lube. Silicone lube.
Yes.
Wet platinum silicone lube.
Or if you think that you can supply everything, try one without lube and see how it feels, and then you won't go without lube again. You know, it's just nonsense. So if someone's pushing that, I mean, that's probably a little toxic, and you need to have a conversation, or you need to get the fuck out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And and just make it a habit. When you go and you pick up your condoms, pick up your lube.
Exactly.
They go together. You know, I don't know. I worked in retail for a long time, and I worked in a pharmacy, and I sold condoms all the time.
Oh my
Never
God.
sold the lube.
Actually, you're very we both worked in retail, like a medical retail. And I sold a lot of condoms, found a lot of stolen pregnancy tests, but never sold a single.
That lube sat on the shelf forever.
It was dusty. Every month I'm like getting the dust off of it.
No shit.
Yeah.
See, and that is one of the biggest problems. That's one of the biggest problems. I mean, people really don't put two and two together. And they should. When you're buying condoms, you should obviously be buying lube. I understand if you have some at your house.
Yeah,
right?
if you already have some.
But
But if you don't have it, it should be like on your checklist. So when I'm having sex, this is what I'm doing to have safe, fun sex.
Yes.
You know?
Fun being the key word there.
Lots of
because
fun.
lube
It
is
makes
going
it
to
so
make it more
much more
fun.
fun.
It
That's
does.
another thing. Like, it's not just that it's something you should do. It also makes it more, like a condom doesn't make things more fun, but lube makes things more fun.
Lube makes things more fun. Exactly.
Exactly.
And I mean, especially when you're with a female partner, I mean, maybe it'll slip into the wrong hole. I hear that happening quite a bit. So, I mean, at least you're lubed up.
Everything, exactly. That's true. You can absolutely aim for the one hole and get the other one. So you want to be prepared. That's not a fun feeling. All right. So this is just real quick. Like, there's a lot of other non-sexual benefits to lube. So I don't know if you ever talk about this. It doesn't matter that much. But, you know, people talk about how they use it as a hair frizz serum.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. It's good for squeaks and creaks, moisturizer, shoe shiner, shaving lotion.
Yeah.
Anything.
You're absolutely right because especially when you're talking silicone lube. So our Wet Platinum, everybody knows Wet Platinum is the best anal lube in the entire world, which it really is. It's great for vaginal intercourse also. Truth that. Great for full body massage. So those are the 3 main things that you can do with Platinum. But if you want some extra things that you could do on a humid day, anti-frizz works for great anti-frizz for your hair. Okay. Squeaky car doors, squeaky doors in general, go ahead, apply some of the silicone lube. It's going to take the squeak away. It works for a wonderful makeup primer also, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
My old regional manager, Jenny, at Lover's Lane in Chicago, she's the one that taught me that. Her makeup was always flawless. I mean, like Kardashian style. Yeah. And everybody's like, what do you use? She's like, well, I use Platinum as a primer. So, yeah. And it's true. It also works for a good remover, too. So, I mean, you could use lube for pretty much anything. Also, I mean, for the water-based stuff, or we have an aloe-based one, which is our organics. Being aloe-based, if you get sunburn, go ahead, apply that. It's going to take care of business.
Apply it, get a massage, and have some fun. It's like an all-in-one.
It just rolls into something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right there, I mean, anal lube, vaginal lube, massage, anti-frizz for hair, squeaky car doors, re-shining leather for bondage, like your leather corsets.
That's a great point.
Yes. Yeah. Anybody that's into bondage, you spend a lot of money on that leather stuff. That's really expensive. After a year or two, it does start to dry out. It could even get cracked. Yeah. Take a little Platinum, rub it on there, and it's going to re-shine and rehydrate. So, I mean, there's so many different things that you could do with lube outside of having sex with. Obviously, sex is the best. But, and everything else that I said, you could really do with it, and it'll save you a lot of money.
Yeah, make the most of it. If you've got free samples lying around, or if you have one that you prefer over the other, that's great for the bondage, because you're right, it does crack, and I hate that.
Yes.
So, yes, shine up your bondage.
Shine up your bondage shit.
All right, and you've talked about, are you trying to roll up?
Go. You're taking too long.
Well, I don't know what you want, so we'll talk about some different kinds. So here's a big debate, and I guess you can, we see all the time. Now, there's different basic formulas for lube. We've got silicone, water, oil, and like a hybrid mix. And we also talked about aloe. So the big debate is water versus silicone. Like, people are very adamant about that. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on that, I have a lot of thoughts on that, to be honest with you, because it's like one of those things where people come into the stores and they say, I'm allergic to silicone. And while sure, I mean, people could be allergic to silicone, the amount of people that tell me that they're allergic to silicone, I just don't think they know their own bodies, because silicone...
It's supposed to be hypoallergenic, right?
For the most part, it is, because it's derived from sand. I mean, I know that doesn't sound great, but it is. Silicone is derived from sand.
It doesn't feel like sand, I promise.
No, not at all. It's like melted down. I mean, glass is made from sand also. The things that you can make out of sand, for real. So, I mean, it is a very natural property. So to be allergic to that, maybe like 1% of the population, it's kind of like water. There's people that are allergic to water that can't shower, but that's literally like under 1% of the population. That is such a rare thing. So I just don't think people really understand their bodies. I prefer silicone, and it's not just because of anal sex and being gay, dude. It's not just because of that. But I mean, the health benefits behind it are great, because it's not absorbing into your skin. So nothing is absorbing into your body and getting in there, like glycerins or whatever could potentially be in a water base, parabens. Also for women, for vaginal intercourse, silicone lube is actually better than a water base because it's closer to the natural pH balance.
Okay.
Also, just the fact that it doesn't dry out is the greatest, because with the water base, it will absorb into your body and it may get a little sticky or tacky, dry out on you, depending on what brand you use. Ours does not, so use WET and you won't have that problem. But typically with a water base, you will have to reapply at a certain point.
And it's not that great in the shower either.
No.
You have to use the silicone in the shower.
Yeah,
silicone in the water, absolutely.
In the shower.
Sex in the shower, you definitely need a silicone. Yep. You absolutely want to use silicone. So that's why I always go silicone. And plus all the other benefits that you get so much bang for your buck with the bottle of silicone, because you could do a full body massage with that. Whereas a water-based lube, I mean... Why would you?
You're going to get drunk.
It's just absorb.
Yeah, it lasts longer. It goes longer. Like you said, even though a silicone tends to be a little bit more expensive, it's like concentrated laundry detergent. Yes, you're paying a little bit more, but really
it's like $1 more.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that much. The only other thing that I would say that water has that silicone doesn't is water doesn't stain. But even then, how often are you really staining your sheets with silicone?
Correct. And I mean, typically, depending on the silicone, like our silicone, for example, that we use at WET, if you do spill it on your clothes or your bed sheets, just throw it in the washing machine right away and you won't stain.
You'll be fine. Okay. So there you go. So if you do stain a little bit, that's good. But I mean, as overall, it does seem like silicone is by far the best choice.
Love silicone.
But you guys do have a water-based one too?
Yeah, we have a bunch of water bases. So we have
Okay.
like our Wet Original, and the Wet Original is probably the number one water base that I would recommend just because it is a little bit thicker of a viscosity and never sticky, never tacky, does not dry out very easily. But if you do feel a little dryness happening or maybe you feel like you need to reapply a little bit more, of course you can do that. But a little saliva or water will actually bring the product back. And you don't need to waste any more out of the bottle. Yeah. And then like for the people that are looking for something a little bit more natural, we do have our organics and our naturals, which have no glycerins, no parabens. It's like 100% like body safe. Literally the percentages are super high with like 100% natural on both and then like 95% organic, 75% organic on the other one. So for that Whole Foods shopper, that body conscious customer who, the ingredient driven customer, if you will, that's what we cater to in that aspect. And we also have one that we've infused with hemp seed extract.
I was
which
it was like Hemptation or something?
Yes, the Hemptation lube is really cool.
I've tried that one. It's quite nice.
It looks really pretty, right? And it feels good. It does what it's supposed to do. I mean, a lot of people think that it's gonna like kind of get you high or something like that, but there is no THC in it. There is no CBD in it. It is just hemp seed extract or cannabis seed extract. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna help with healthy blood flow. So I mean, it could help with harder, firmer, more powerful erections. Help with higher, increased orgasms.
Couple it with poppers.
Yeah, with poppers. Oh, that's a one big thing in our gay community. Okay, don't judge me right now. I have never tried a popper in my life.
Really?
No, I've never tried poppers.
Wow, I'm just a heathen.
No, everybody says that they're so great. Everybody does
it.
it. Seriously.
I've seen people like do poppers before they go out and perform, and I'm like, that's insanity.
I don't even know what it feels like. I don't know.
I feel like you get really, really hot.
Okay.
And then you kind of feel like you're gonna melt.
Oh.
I don't know. You're just like that.
I mean, I'm not playing holier than thou. I mean, that sounds like when I was on mushrooms that one time.
It only lasts for a short amount of time, though. So I just don't understand. Like, I could never imagine doing that and then like dancing. That like it's not. It's very like collapsing, like submitting type thing.
Because they're huge in the clubs, like in the gay bars and the gay clubs, and somebody's always pulling out a bottle of Rush or something like.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, when you go to, well, I guess it depends on the area, but like around here, if you go to like a sex shop, you have to, what's it called, like VCR
nail polish
cleaner?
remover.
Yeah, it's
or VCR cleaner.
Yeah, VCR cleaner. That's what they have to sell it as, so you can buy
I
it.
need to clean my VHS player, please.
That's literally what people have to do. Like, I need a VHS cleaner.
I don't like DVD. I refuse to conform, so I'm stuck in the 80s and 90s with all of my VHS tapes.
So good stuff. Always use responsibly, but yes. What is where else was I going? Oh, I had one flavored lube. So we were talking outside and we were talking about, because you use the Juul.
I do. I use the Juul. So there's a shameless plug for the Juul also. Quit smoking cigarettes, everybody.
Promo code queer.
Yes, promo code queer. But it's funny because what I noticed is obviously like working with flavored lubes, and I love our flavored lubes. They taste so good, and I know our ingredients. When this whole spiel started to come up in the world about like Juul pods and how they're so bad for you and they're killing people and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, I'm like, what the hell? Like, I quit smoking cigarettes. That was a really hard thing, and I'm smoking the Juul, and I'm really, really proud of myself. So you're telling me this is worse than smoking something that has like rat poison and arsenic
God
in it?
knows
Like,
what the fuck it is. It's like the bones of dead children are in cigarettes.
Yes!
I think they said there was like formaldehyde in there. Like
formaldehyde?
Yeah, I was
Yes!
like, Jesus.
I mean, that's what they put in
Battery
cigarettes.
acid.
But they're making a big deal about these things, the Juul pods. And I looked at the ingredient deck. I recommend anybody that smokes the Juul and uses flavored lube to compare ingredients. Basically, inside of a flavored lube, you're going to be dealing with water, glycerin because it's naturally sweet and it also holds the consistency, flavoring, whether it's artificial or natural, whatever. Okay, it's the exact same thing in a Juul pod. You're smoking flavored fucking lube out of a Juul pod.
That's what you're smoking.
Yes, but don't smoke your lube.
But got it in the bite like Samantha had that one time with your pot. Like,
like the refills and shit.
Exactly.
A bunch of people are now going to hear this and they're going to start filling up there.
Do not smoke your lube.
It will ruin your vape.
Please. But our point is that if you can suck a dick with flavored lube, you should be able to smoke flavored lube.
You should be able to smoke it
responsibly through a Juul pod.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's the point. Like, we've all consumed. I mean, I've consumed my share of flavored lube. Have you? Do you even?
A few times. I've never. It's not. I don't know.
You prefer the natural taste.
I would say I won a contest recently to be able to taste the flavored lubes. I won like a little book because I could guess what the tastes were. So
Yes.
that shows that I really know my flavors. So my whole point is,
Well, we're going to put you to the test with ours because we have some really obscure flavors and in the
that one's
best
gonna be
possible
tough.
way. We
These
have
are
some
like
really good
standards.
ones.
These are like peppermint, watermelon, but
And we have all of those too, don't get me wrong. But we have some different ones.
Is there a lube that's better for like toys? Should you use water, silicone, or what's better for condoms? Like what should you use for each situation?
For each situation, it very much depends. So if you're incorporating toys into the mix, the one thing that's the only time that I would tell you not to use a silicone lube. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I tell you not to use a silicone lube with silicone toys is because silicone lube is in a liquid form and then its silicone toy is in its hardened form. Mm-hmm. When you put the two together, if you don't wash it or take care of it properly, the liquid silicone will actually start to like blend with the hard silicone, break it down and melt it, and they try to become one. So it literally will melt your toy.
Okay.
When it comes to condoms, latex, it depends. Like our brand, I recommend our Wet Platinum, always and forever. It is totally latex compatible. So you could use silicone lube with latex condoms. Water-based is really the preference for a lot of first-time users, beginners, and women, and people that don't understand silicone. Shamelessly plugging.
It's in your blood.
But I mean, water-based absolutely has its advantages, again, for toys especially, and for maybe women or people that think that they're allergic to silicone for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. So, but if they are going to lose silicone, then they would want to make sure that they're really cleaning their toys.
I just never recommend using silicone lube with a silicone toy just because of the risk of deteriorating your toy and what could happen. But I mean, if you do use silicone lube with your silicone toys, just make sure that you have a toy cleaner. We have cleaners that are specifically designed for toys. So make sure that you wash it really, really well right after use and obviously before use. And toy cleaner is actually a really big thing too that people don't really think of. The horror stories that I've heard with what people do with their beautiful toys, they spend $200-$300 on these nice vibrators, these nice silicone vibrators. And would you like to pick up this like $5 toy wash? No, I'm just going to use rubbing alcohol. I use Clorox wipes.
Or they just don't do anything.
Or they don't do anything
and
and leave it
they're
there.
putting something covered in
the
bacteria
Clorox wipes,
inside of them.
God.
Mm-hmm. The dishwasher. I've heard
dishwasher.
everything. I've heard it all. The things that people just go out and buy the $5 toy wash.
Hose it down with their hose outside.
Oh my God, if they do that,
It's better than nothing. No, it's true.
might as well pee on it.
I honestly didn't even know there was a toy cleaner until like maybe 2 years ago when Katie was like, "You don't have a fucking toy cleaner."
You talk to somebody that works in the biz and we're going to be like, what?
Exactly.
How dare you?
The employee at I went to an amazing not too long ago, and the employee was like, "No, you need this. This is why."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like actually listening and buying.
Yeah. Keep it in your bag. Whatever.
I couldn't imagine going to the doctor being like, "So, I have this problem.
I used a dirty toy."
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you help me?" I feel like that's a little worse than spending $5 on a toy cleaner.
Yeah.
And
I
just
think going to the
taking
doctor and
care
saying
of
you got an
yourself.
infection using a toy that you didn't clean is way
Way
worse
worse.
than being like, "Hi, I'd like to buy a toy cleaner."
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so get those toy cleaners and silicone stays away from silicone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a good rule to keep. And so there was one study that I wanted to publish, or not publish, but talk about. So Wet was tested as one of the safest main brands in 2010. Microbicids was it's a company that ran a test. It wasn't run by Wet Lube. It was just in general. They did a control called PRE, and they tested Astroglide, Elbow Grease, KY Jelly, ID Glide, and Wet Lube. And what they found was that Wet Lube and the control PRE were the safest because the hypersolilar, oh my God, I really
Hypersolilar. You sound like me.
Because the lubricant gels were associated with cellular toxicity, and that may lead to an increased risk in HIV infection. And Wet was the only silicone-based lubricant in the study. So again, that goes back to your thing about silicone and how it's safer because it doesn't break down as easily. It doesn't break your cellular walls down as easily.
Absolutely, because it won't absorb inside of your body, and that's the thing when you're dealing with a water-based lube. Water absorbs into your skin. That's just natural. It happens. So when you have additives to that water base, you don't know what the company is putting in there unless you work for the company. So what else is getting absorbed in there? When you're using a silicone, and I mean, again, Wet Platinum is #1 doctor recommended, top of the line, 4-blend silicone. You really can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
And it's just completely natural, and it feels so good. And as the tests proved, it is superior to the rest.
It is superior.
It speaks for itself. It is also, again, I can't stress too that it's #1 doctor recommended. That's huge. I get to say that. It's #1 doctor recommended.
That's true. Yeah. So I mean, and again, when we go back, like so many benefits to lube, but safe sex has got to be at the top of your list.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes. And a question. So, growing up in the Midwest and being a young gay man, there were plenty of things that when you didn't have lube, you substituted. So, question. On the safe sex scale, conditioner, lotion,
Jesus.
vegetable oil, olive oil, and all of the household essentials that you have.
Well, I mean, I think I probably used every single one of those things that you just mentioned between the ages of 10 and 12. So, probably conditioner. Conditioner.
What about for insertion?
Oh.
That's where I was at.
wow.
Probably none, but...
I was going to say probably none, but I mean, if you do have a lotion that is maybe aloe-based or something, maybe you're okay.
And you smell great after.
And they smell great after. I mean, I personally, when I was like 10 to 12, I wasn't really putting things inside of myself. I wonder, though, if I could get back in my brain the first time I did put something inside myself. I know I didn't fucking use lube. I wonder what I used.
Oh God.
Oh,
Right?
Probably
that's
oil, right?
Probably something that I
oil.
shouldn't have.
Probably
I
spit.
mean, what else?
And I wonder what the object was that I put inside of me, because I mean, it wasn't a toy. I wonder what the hell. That's why you have all of these like weird images of like X-rays of people with like toy cars and things in their buttholes.
Yep. A Sharpie.
A Sharpie, yeah. Maybe that's what I used.
It's a good starter because it's just like it's just small enough. It's a
Exactly.
good starter.
Yeah, and I was only like 10 to 12, so.
Is it true that like you shouldn't use oil down there for insertion? That was something that I read.
As far as oil goes, the #1 thing that I have against oil and that I don't recommend oil-based products for is because that's never latex compatible.
Yeah.
So that doesn't promote safe
that's
sex.
right, yeah.
That's a good thing to know.
Yeah,
Not
so that
latex
doesn't
compatible.
promote safe sex in itself. As far as an oil-based, because there are oil-based lubes out there, and I don't think that they really do anything terrible, if you use them. But again, if you're trying to have the safest possible sex, again, oil is just usually not compatible.
If you're using
with
condoms, don't use that. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And I don't think you want to use it with toys either. I could be totally wrong on that, and somebody could come out of the woodworks and be like, "You are wrong. You could use it with toys." But I really don't.
Everything that I saw was like no. I mean, when they were talking about toys, there was always water-based, and when they
Water-based.
were talking about inserting, you want to do silicone or you want to do water-based.
Exactly.
So.
And I mean, speaking of which, too, just so people don't get confused, there is a hybrid, and we did bring up the hybrid.
Yeah.
Depends on the hybrid. Our hybrids at Wet you can use with toys because the silicone content is only about 5%.
Yeah.
So it's very low silicone content in our hybrids. You could definitely use those with the toys. It's just to keep it the glide going is why we have that silicone splash, because we obviously, sexual health and wellness, we want to remove the glycerins, we want to remove the parabens. So tiny splash of silicone to keep it going and going
That
and
makes
going.
sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this next one we'll say one thing and then we have a question. So it's what else sets Wet apart as a company, and is this true? I pulled this from your website, so I hope it's true.
So, our wet water-based products formulated with non-GMO, vegan-friendly glycerin, USP 99.5% natural, kosher, which is made from raw materials, palm kernel oil, palm oil products.
All of those things that you have just said are absolutely accurate.
It's a vegan-based lube.
It is vegan-based.
I was like, what am I reading?
And you
You
pulled
just
that,
read vegan-based lube, and then you read what they said.
and you pulled that right from our website, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes. So that is absolutely 100% accurate. And that in itself, I think, is a great indicator of what would separate Wet Lubricants from a lot of the rest. One of the other things that really separates Wet from the rest, too, is just the history that we have and the quality of the product. I mean, we've been around for over 30 years at this point, so we've gotten to have that 30 years of experience knowing what the customer wants and how to improve our brand. Brands that have been out for 5-10 years only, that's still trial and error. We've been around the block on numerous times. We definitely know what we're doing. We only use top-of-the-line ingredients. We're really there for our customer and the customer base, the consumer that is using our products. Unlike a lot of other companies that are just there to make a dollar, we want to make sure that you're going to enjoy our product. You're going to get the quality that you're paying for in our products while having it be a fair price too. Because I mean, there's so many lubes out there that maybe they're great quality, but you're spending $30, $40 on a bottle for, and that is absolutely ridiculous because, again, you can't get better quality than our Platinum. Like, our Wet Platinum is number one. It is the best. You cannot do better. You could pay more for a different product that may have the same quality or less quality, but at the end of the day, ours is the fairest price, and ours is the best stuff out there.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So I guess that goes into the last section of, like, kind of looking into the future, and you guys have an anal lubricant, Uranus, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The Uranus lube.
So, all right. So, I guess my question is, like, why is that better? And then, are you guys going to do more in, like, the anal world, or is it just you sticking with that for now, or what?
You know what? As far as right now, we're always looking to kind of branch out and expand and come up with more products. As far as the anal lube goes, if I could be super frank, it's very similar to our Wet Platinum.
Yeah. So because Paul's used, like you said,
tried
that
them all.
you tried them all.
I was sent a very nice sample package, so I have been experimenting, and I will say that the Elite and the Uranus are both very great.
Yes.
And I like them both. So what's the difference, I guess?
So really with the Elite is actually going to be a hybrid, believe it or not. That's
really?
Yeah,
that's
the
actually
Elite
really interesting because it didn't dry out.
Exactly. It mimics a silicone so well. The Elite is actually 95% water-based with a 5% silicone splash. So, fooled ya, right? It did not dry out. It's one of my favorites, too. Platinum is always my number one forever and always. Elite is really a close number two. But Uranus, because it is so close to Platinum, and really, I mean, the package design on it, I mean, it has a planet. It has a planet Uranus. It's Uranus anal lube. It's astronaut recommended. It's just funny, all of the ass puns. And the one thing that I really respect about the anal lube, the Uranus, is it's more geared for that customer that we were talking about earlier that goes into the adult store mortified and does not want to ask any sort of question. If they go up to the lube wall and they see Wet Platinum or Wet Elite, it's a black bottle, but nowhere does it indicate that it is for anal sex or that you can use it for anal sex. Whereas then you walk in and you have Uranus at the planet. It already lightens the mood a little bit. It says silicone anal lube. Boom. That customer that is completely mortified, that does not want to ask any questions, so embarrassed, just wants to run in and run out. They see it. Silicone, anal lube, grab it, go. They could go up to the counter, be mortified for 5 seconds, but it's funny because there's a cute little planet on it and the packaging's fun. And then they could leave and have a great experience with it. So really the difference between Platinum and Uranus, there's not a whole lot of a difference. Just kind of more marketed towards that customer that may not want to ask the question because they don't want to go in and be like, hi, I'm having anal sex for the first time and I'm going to put things in my ass. Especially, people don't like to do that. Some people don't like to buy lube in general, let alone anal lube. Jesus.
Okay, so all right, that's good.
That makes sense.
But if you're recommending, you're telling people, like, if you're using Wet Platinum, that's just as safe for your ass as the Uranus.
It is 100%. And I mean, again, you can't make a bad decision with Platinum, Elite, or the Uranus. Those are really the three of my favorites in the entire. I mean, we have 50 plus different types of lube. Those three that you just mentioned really do happen to be my top three.
All right.
Lube, so lube is booming with an expected increase of 7% over the next 5 years and an estimated revenue of $1.5 billion. The growing interest is most likely due to an increase in sex-positive attitudes. And how do we continue this trend?
People just need to use lube. They just need to be really educated on sexual health and wellness. They need to be educated on their bodies, even just pleasure. I mean, when you're having sex, isn't the ultimate factor to have the best experience, feel so good, and have that great orgasm?
I mean, that's my goal.
Right?
I don't know about everybody else, but that's what I'm trying to get to.
I mean, that's exactly it. That's everybody's main goal. So, I mean, if all it takes is a little bit of lube to get you to that point, why wouldn't you be using it? So really just everybody needs to use lube. And I think that really in today being 2020, it's not so taboo anymore to talk about sex. No. It's very out there, and people are they're educating themselves, which I mean, that is just, that makes me ecstatic. That makes me so happy that people are taking the time to educate themselves on sexual health. And through that, they will learn about lubricants and everything that we've just discussed. They will get out of their learning and their education and use it. And I think that will help grow the business all on its own. And we don't ever want to go back to those days where we're seeing people use Vaseline, Crisco, and God knows what else they find in their refrigerator cabinets.
Lotion.
Yeah, lotion, conditioner,
Everything in
all
your
that good
kitchen.
stuff. Oh, the mid-90s.
So I think the big thing is, like, if you're listening and you're a sex educator in any way, or if you're just a parent that's listening, I think the big thing is incorporating talking about lube when you're talking about sex education, because I think
Absolutely.
that's a big thing. People just aren't talking about it. They're talking about all these things, and then we talk about condoms to prevent STDs, and we talk about birth control to prevent unwanted pregnancies, but we're not talking about other ways that we can prevent.
And
these
if you're
things.
that cool parent who will buy your kid condoms, pick them up a bottle of Wet, promo code queer. And yeah, there you go. If you're buying them a condom, you might as well buy them the things
Buy
that
them
are
the
going
lube.
to.
In the quote of Mean
ensure-
Girls, don't be a regular mom, be a cool mom.
Yeah, exactly. My mom was a cool mom, and look how I turned out.
Mine too, and look how we both turned out. Hey!
So,
Mine was good.
and look how you turned out.
And look how I turned out. No, but okay. So yeah, that's good. So those are, that about wraps it up. I hope we've educated you all about lube and why you need to have lube and why you need to have wet lube. And so before we head out, did you have anything else that you wanted to say, Joe?
I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for having me here. This is so much fun. This is so cool. I love Rhode Island. I can't wait to come back, hopefully for Pride, and
Yes.
pass out some lube samples.
Yes.
And I know after this, we're going to do some videos for your social media, get you guys all lubed up, taste test some things. So thank you for everybody listening also, and make sure to run out to your closest adult store or pharmaceutical store and grab yourself a bottle of Wet. We have so many different things. You can't make a bad decision. So if you're looking for some flavors, go for it. Water-based, go for it. And platinum, my hat would tip to you.
That's right. So make sure you check that out, guys. Like we said, check out our videos. What was I going to say? There was one other
subscribe
thing.
to Wet Platinum on Instagram.
Subscribe to Wet Platinum. Follow them on social media. Get nice and wet. I had one other thing I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was.
Wetter is better. No.
Wetter's better. That's for you. But check it out, guys, and continue to follow as we do some more stuff with Joe. And thank you. That's what I wanted to say. I want to say thank you for coming out here.
Well, thank you for
So
having
hard.
me.
I had to dig back into my brain for that. Thank you for coming out. We really do appreciate you coming out.
Thank you guys so
Been
much.
great.
This is so much fun.
All right.
So stay queer.
Don't get a lobotomy.
We love you, our little allied hookers.
And a little succulent sapphists.
And resist the oppressors, our proud homocrats.
That's right. Have a sodomy circus and stay wet.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.